Welcome. In this video we're going to talk about chart styles and other chart options. Now a style is a North Indian chart, a South Indian chart, a East Indian chart, a Western wheel. These are the different styles. Now when you first start the software you get this preferences page, and this is a sort of quick setup, and one of the choices is what your chart style should be. If you select, say, South here, then the next chart you produce will come out South. Changing this here won't change anything on the page, it'll just change future adjustments. However, you can change everything on the page if you want to. There's two ways of doing that. I can click on this chart, type in, say, South. Suppose you want to change it to South. Then these are the two important options. One is apply style of this to everything on the page. Well, that'll make everything North Indian. So let's just try that. See, everything became North Indian. Now, if you decide you don't like what you just did, you can go to the Edit menu and do Undo, which is Control Z or Z, like in all other software. And then the other alternative is that you right click and you get this pop-up menu, which is really fabulous. Lots of very useful things in this pop-up menu, so it's really worth looking at it. But there's this item, change all charts on page 2, and then you can decide, say, we want everything South Indian. There you go. So let's decide we want to change this back to North Indian. We can just say, you search, say, on South or North, whatever you type there. And you can see it's currently South Indian. So you click here, choose North or East, click Done. So it's very, very simple switching between the different styles. Now we're going to look at the other chart options. If we click on a chart, we'll see options for selected chart. Of course, the native is the one that the chart is pointing at, and that's something we discuss in other videos, but you just click on this to change it. But if you're looking for all the other options, they're here. So these first two here are particularly interesting, but I thought we'd first look at the adjusting the size of the graph. So you can click here and modify the height and width, or you can use these buttons to just go up and down by one cell. But let me show you a basically simpler way of doing this. So if we turn on the grid, now the grid can be turned on in the choices and options, that dialog we just saw, or you can go up here and click the grid button. There are two grid buttons. One gives you a fine grid and one gives you a coarse grid. The coarse grid is most convenient for regular use. The fine grid is mainly for creating beautiful pages. So when we turn the grid on, then we'll see in the bottom right corner of charts and graphs that there's this little triangle appears, and if you grab hold of it with the mouse, you can drag to change the size. Now it won't snap to the grid until you get past the halfway point to the next grid space. So don't be surprised it's not happening instantly, because it's just how fast you're moving your mouse, really, that's the thing. Of course, if you turn on the fine grid, then it'll be snapping to the fine grid, and you see the cursor changes when you've got the fine grid on. So it's, you know, you can do more subtle things, and you can also drag the thing around and reposition it. So these are, they're cool things you can do. So you don't have to work with the choices and options if you want to do the thing manually like that. So if we turn off the fine grid, say by clicking the coarse grid, naturally it will snap to the coarse grid. We'll just go back to this situation. The South Indian chart was still there because I hadn't cleared this page by going to another page. By giving it space, it reappeared. All right, so let's look at how we set up which planets we're going to see in a chart, and then we'll look at how we can get handy information along with them. So when we click here and we click chart options for selected chart, the first thing we see is planets, ascendants, Arudas, etc. in the chart. So if we click here, we'll get the list of the planets and other objects we can put inside the chart. And it's a good long list. For example, suppose we select the Aruda Lagna. Now each time you select something, it'll get checked. So this lets you check multiple things before you actually click done and go to the chart. But let's just click done. And you'll see the Aruda Lagna has appeared here in the 4th house. So we can look at a few other things here. Now you can get to anything you want by just searching for it. If I typed Aruda, before we even came to this list of the planets, we'd still see this list. So these are all the different things relating to the Aruda Lagna. So it's often easier to just start searching, but we can also work with a list like this. So there are some special situations. You see, sometimes, usually you want the ascendant and the 9 planets, the Navagraha, but there are certain times when you might want to have, either no Ketu or no Rahu in Ketu, or just the ascendant. For example, if you selected just the ascendant, and then you said we want all the Arudas, so you get a different kind of chart. See, we click done or check here. So now you have a very uncluttered chart which shows the position of the Arudas in all the houses without, all the planets. Now this is a specialist kind of thing, but I'm just showing that. So you ever see a chart that looks like this, you know how that was constructed, or if you want to create such a chart. So we can change that back to the 9 planets. Also, when we look at things like houses, so under houses, you've got a choice of all the house cusps or just the midheaven, the MC. Those are the options. Then we have various special ascendants, and we have Aprakasha Grahas, we have Duma, the Upagrahas. So these are all options here, you see, Kala, etc. And up here we have the Aprakasha, which is Duma, etc. So basically all those Upagrahas are divided into 2 groups. So that's very convenient. We could add the Gatika Lagna and the Hora Lagna. Hora Lagnas do with money and Gatika Lagnas to do with power. So we could, we'll uncheck this one and then we'll click done. So here we have the Aruda Lagna, we have the Gatika Lagna and the midheaven. And we have the Hora Lagna and all the planets. So the next thing is degrees, etc. by the planet glyphs. Now, what you see here is one of my favorites, which is the Charakarikas. If you're into the Charakarikas, it's super convenient. I think this is another unique feature of this software, that you can put so much information next to the planet glyphs. It just seems to work great. And if you're into the Charakarikas, then this is convenient. You see immediately, you see the sun is the Atmakarika. You don't have to go and look in some table. Now you've got 2 choices with the Charakarikas. Either you can put the actual degrees and minutes, or you can put the degrees where the 0 to 1 is 1 degree, 1 to 2 is 2 degree, like that. Now that is used for certain special purposes in Jyotish. So the option is there. Most of the time you'd want to use the degrees. Now, it just so happens that if you type part of the word degree, you will see all these options. That's actually super convenient because you don't have to drill down to get to it. Just type a few letters and you get what you want. But here you see the options degree plus Charakarikas or degrees plus Charakarikas. See if we do that, we get this. Down here we have another example. You see, this ascendant is in Gemini, but the Navamsha is Pisces. See, Navamsha Pisces. And this is the Lord of the Nakshatra. It's in, obviously, in Ardra, in the middle of the Gemini. So this is just one of the many choices, you see. If we go back to this, we'll see Navamsha Nakshatra number, Navamsha Nakshatra Lord, Navamsha house, sign, and Navamsha, Nama Nakshatra. So the sound that's associated with the planet. Some people use this all the time. That's why I included it. Nakshatra number and Pada number, and so forth. There's so many different options here, all of which have a very specific usage and are very convenient. Now you can switch off the degrees for Arudas, Varanadas, and same degree house cusps. It reduces the amount of what you could call clutter. If the house cusps are different degrees because of the unequal house system you're using, then it'll remain. Otherwise, it'll be hidden. So that's an option. And there's some new options here, which have been added at the request of various users. And this one here, Tarabala Natural Lord, this is a very interesting option. So we select that. See, the system of the governors, it's based on the Vimshotri Dasha system and the lords of the Vimshotri Dasha. And what it's really saying is that, for example, in this chart, when the Jupiter Dasha comes, you'll get results of Mercury. Now, this is mildly complicated, and it's been explained by myself when I gave a lecture on it in Bhava, and also Sanjay Raj has also been explaining it recently. So it's good to listen to those lectures. But I've given you the main idea, which is you need to check this planet when you're looking at this Mahadasha. So there are a few other options, quite a few others. Some of them just apply to the South Indian chart. Like you can put a picture of Ganesha in the middle, or you can put Om in the middle, or you can put Om plus the birth data in the middle. And you can have house numbers from the Lagna in the chart. You can have Sarvashtaka Varga values and the house numbers from the Lagna, the Sun and the Moon also in the chart. So you can have a lot of extra information in the South Indian chart for those who like that. You can adjust the way the title is showing. This is a very powerful tool, and you've got choices of description, which is like this, Rashi D1 General, or you can have the name of the person, or you can have the description and the rising sign times. So if it's a Rashi chart, it's the beginning and end of the ascendant, the time rising of that sign. And then if it's a divisional chart, it's the time rising of that division. So it's extremely handy. There are other ways of getting that information, but this is one of them. And you can have the rising times with the name of the person as well. So you can also do things like putting a lotus colored border, and there's lots of choices for how you... I mean, the gold is very pretty, but some people like these other colors. So that's all very cool. And let's see, I have to set that. There you go. I just set the color. Now these lotus borders look better if the chart is more square. We turn on the grid and drag this down here. It's prettier. And also it's easier to see this feature. You see this little thing. I call these things in the top right of charts and tables and graphs switches, because when you click on it, something happens. So what's happening, these are the aspect lines. You can put aspect lines in any kind of chart, and there are various choices for aspect lines. So this is the exact Parashari aspect lines. And I mean, you have to set a threshold because there is some kind of aspect between the partial aspects, and the partially precise aspects go from 0 to 60. So there's a threshold built into the software, and we type threshold. And so you see full aspect 50 out of 60. And then for yogas there's a lower threshold. So these thresholds can be changed rather easily. You can also use orbs of so many degrees. The orbs are used for the Western style aspects, which is one of the options. So this little, what I call a switch up here, will turn on the different types of aspects. So if you click on that side, you get the Western aspects, and you see the major aspects are a solid line and the minor aspects are a dotted line. And you can adjust the threshold or the orbs that are being used. Here under the special menu, you see narrow all orbs, Shift Control N, widen all orbs, Shift Control W. And it's very convenient to use these keyboard shortcuts actually. Saves going to the menu every time you want to do something. So if you press Shift Control N, you start losing orbs. I mean, the orb is being narrowed, so you're losing some of the aspects. And when you make a change, you'll get a pop-up which shows what the current state of the orbs are. So you can widen them, you can narrow them. I'm going to try widening them. So you do it as you like. See, and here's the pop-up. If you're doing a lot of this work and you want to see that pop-up, you can actually turn it on here. Shift Control K. Now if we click here, we can go to the Parashari exact aspects. We can have Jaimini aspects, that's the Rashi aspects. We can have Parashara plus Jaimini. We can have sign aspects. There's a systems approach which has tighter orbs. And then there's the Tajika system, which is also very interesting. It's used for Varshval. And again, it's, you can control the orbs. And you can switch them off. So one more thing I'll show you. Suppose we search on apply. You'll see we can apply the style. We've discussed that in the style part. But we can also apply the planets to the page. So here we had some extras we added, Gatika Lagna and so forth. So if I click here, we'll see them appear over here in all these other charts. So that's very convenient. So enjoy.